What's up, everyone? Kevin Allen here, aka the Geek, and I've got John, Statsational, Alessia, top 10 elbow to fist assassin with me to break down the NFL Week 14 slate from a DFS and betting angles perspective. Let's do this. Oh, shit, the music ended.
It's very mellow, man. It's very mellow.
I'm feeling like I'm back in my trance days, hitting up the scene. Were you part of the trance scene, John, Statsational?
I was never part of the trance scene, no.
No?
A lot of people would say you kind of walk around in a trance.
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. See, that's because, listen, before I became the fantasy football geek, I'd be out there with the light sticks, baggy pants.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Doing my thing.
And I was a big club guy, but it was more like, the Brooklyn, Long Island, New York, like back in the day was the guys going out to the clubs.
The Brooklyn club is not the same as,
the Brooklyn, Bay Ridge clubs back in the day, that was in the 80s was like, when I was a little younger, but
if you wanted to get into a fight, it was a good spot.
The 86 Mets all used to hang out in Bay Ridge.
It's a good fight spot.
It was a good fight spot.
Yeah, if you want to get into trouble, you go to Bay Ridge to the clubs.
That's right.
It's the last place I ever went. Literally never would go there. Like, I'm on Long Island, Bridgeview Yacht Club. It's called
Sprouts on the Water.
I don't know. The name has changed so many times, but I was all about the Long Island clubs. Friendlier women.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, a little friendly.
Brooklyn was the toughest.
No, Manhattan
was tough. Yeah,
toughest. Brooklyn,
Long Island was the best.
Yeah, that's where you wanted. Or Jersey, actually.
Oh yeah.
If you cross the outer bridge over into Sayreville, Hunkabunkas
in Sayreville, man.
Yeah.
18 to party, 21 to drink.
That was the spot. Hunkabunka. You want to hear a story? Oh, or I got a Hunkabunka story before we get into the break. You want to hear a Hunkabunka story?
I would love a Hunkabunka story.
So, of course, I was living in Brooklyn, and the crew, we had the same thoughts. These are not new. We were like, oh, Manhattan, it's like a sporting event of women not wanting to talk to us in Manhattan when we went out, right? So that wasn't cool. So we're like, all right, let's go to Jersey. I heard on Z100 that they got something going on over at Hunkabunka. So I grabbed the crew, load them in the back of the Blazer, right? And we're driving Hunkabunkas, Sayreville, baby. Have a great night. On the way back, I'm driving through Staten Island, and all of a sudden, I have no brakes. No brakes. Car has no brakes. Nothing. Great. Pull it over. No brakes. I'm like, fuck, this is fucked, dude. I'm 21 years old. Paying for a tow at that point, you might as well take like 2 weeks worth of salary out of my pocket.
How'd you stop the car? You just let it come to a roll?
First of all, and that's very important, guy. Public service announcement. Hold on. Can I bring the camera in close? Public service. Okay. If you ever lose the brakes, number one move, you slap the car into first gear. It slows it down. Okay, and the first gear will slow down that vehicle enough that eventually you can neutral and get it to stop, right? But the key is you got to shift it into first gear. That the engine naturally slows the vehicle down. No brakes. The best part is what I did after this, though. This isn't all right. So call somebody else. Somebody pick me up. Blah blah blah. The whole deal. Everybody gets home. Now I got my car stuck in Staten Island. It's got to get back to Brooklyn, put some brake fluid in that shit. So I grabbed my buddy at 4:00 in the morning now. I'm like, dude, we got to go get the car. And when I tell you that I had my friend push it with his car. So I had my buddy at 5:00 in the morning, no cars on the road, pushing my car with his car over the Verrazano Bridge, onto the Belt Parkway, all the way to exit 11, Mill Basin. Then on the streets, past Kings Plaza, and to the home front.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
No brakes. No brakes.
That's crazy.
All push. Not push. No, I'm sorry. Not push. I'm sorry. I said it wrong. The car ran. Now, he wasn't pushing me. He was in front of me as a buffer.
Oh,
so
that's even crazy.
If I couldn't stop, at least I would smack. That's a boy. That's tight. Your buddy. And I said it wrong. He drove in front of me, right? And if I wasn't going to be able to stop, it was at least I'll crash into you and not someone else. We did that all the way back home. 35, 40-minute drive like that. No brakes, nothing. No ability to slow the vehicle whatsoever. Except for first gear.
It was scaring me a few months ago. The accelerator got stuck on my car.
What? That happened?
The accelerator got stuck. I floored it to get past. There was a truck that was like tilted. I'm like, this thing looks like it's gonna fall. So I floored it to get past this truck on the highway, and then my accelerator never came back. It got stuck down. Yeah,
that is scary.
Very scary.
Neutral.
I did. Yeah, that's what I did. So then, and then I parked. It was getting caught like on the carpeting or whatever.
That happened
on the floorboard. So
that's a good way to die, by the way. But it's a good way to die.
It's a great way to die. Yeah. I was absolutely had everything floored. So it was awesome. Yeah, it was a scary feeling.
Threw it into neutral?
Yeah, I threw it in neutral, and the brakes worked though. So like if you hit the brake, it did slow it down, but you couldn't take your foot off the brake because the thing was just revving.
That's bananas. That's a scary thing. Throw it into neutral in that situation, guys. A lot of people don't realize that you actually use the shift has uses. Doesn't have a lot of use, but like I said, you got no brakes, shift down to first gear, slows the car down. People don't even know you're supposed to use second and first specifically to slow the car down. That's why that exists. It's there to slow it down in the snow. Slow it down. All right. What are we here? We talking mechanics? No. We're here to talk NFL Week 14 main slate action. And we were just talking about this earlier about how the games simply don't have the type of high totals that we saw last season. It's now official, John. It's official. We are like scoring is down this season. What do your numbers say about overall scoring in the NFL this year, and what's going on?
It looks like we're at like 45.5 points a game, something like that.
As opposed to what last season?
So we were up around the 47, a little over 47. You know, we've lost a good 1.5 a game, which is a lot. We're getting back to levels. I got to look back at my previous seasons, but we're probably like where we're like 10 years ago, where, you know, little by little we've been increasing points scored over the last 10 plus years.
The rules have been designed to allow for more scoring. So what's going on? Is it Mahomes having a bad year, causing a whole ripple effect?
But it just seems like it's not just Mahomes. I've been thinking about that. This is what I think about when I'm in the shower. I was thinking about it yesterday. I'm like, I want to ask Kevin his opinion on this because I don't know. I'm not seeing anything. Usually there's some sort of a rule change. There's some sort of something, but I don't see a rule. Generally, the rule changes are in favor of the offense. Every rule change that they make, so I can't see anything that's being done. I'm gonna have to go. Actually, the one thing I haven't checked is penalties yet. I'm gonna go look at that when we're done, and see if they're just calling penalties in a different way, because that's happened too in the flip where they were gonna be more lenient on offensive holding penalties, and that increased the scoring, of course. So usually these things are hidden in penalties. So I'm gonna see if that maybe they're calling less pass interference calls. I don't know.
Could it be and just keeping it real, could it be that just a few teams suck so bad this year that it's dragging the whole NFL down? Like the Lions, Texans, Jets, shitstorm, Giants, Jaguars. Like there's so many garbage teams.
Yeah, but there's always been that. What we're seeing also this year is like how many times have we looked at a game where like this is the absolute smash game, Dallas, Kansas City, and it just comes up a dud, so it's been a tough season. This has been a really tough go at it. You could tell it's a tough year when I looked at my big money fantasy, not my big money one, but I'm doing well in that one too. But one of my other auction leagues, my team looked terrible, and I'm right there competing for first place right now in that league. Like it was a keeper league. I'm like, I didn't have many great keepers, and I'm crushing. I'm like, that's how you know it's a bad year. All my season-long teams are doing really well.
That's the sign.
Yeah, it's a sign.
That's the sign of a weird year.
Yes,
I hear it. By the way, this is the week that a lot of people are struggling to get into their fantasy playoffs. It's it's go time.
This is it. But look at how many games we're gonna go over them today. Every week outside of that week 12, Thanksgiving week, which I do the Survivor podcast, and we focus on this a lot. That week, not that many big favorites. You going into these weeks, it's like 5 games every week that are 8 points or more, and you sprinkle in a couple of 2 touchdown type of lines, and I think that's contributing to the game stacks not being as good either.
This is what I think also. Yeah, I mean, we haven't had competitive games. We've seen a season where, for DFS purposes, the idea of team and game stacking has just not worked as effectively as it had in the past. Although I still think it is the correct strategy, and you have to continue doing it. Maybe not always game stacking, but definitely team stack. I mean, I'll give some examples, but I just can't see any scenario where high-priced, non-running quarterbacks get you there without 2 of their pass catchers. So I continue to think, for example, that Tom Brady needs to be stacked with 2 every time. Guys like that, guys like Kirk Cousins and Matt Stafford need to be 2 every time. As distasteful as it might have felt for a lot of season, where we'll go through it as we talk about this, but you don't always have to have the bring back, and the bring backs have not been winning. The game stack hasn't been just what it's been in the past this year, but I think it reverts back eventually. You got to keep with it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that certainly was my attitude for a good chunk of the season, but it's starting to look like a trend, like something's up here. I mean, I'm not shying away from the game stack in that, I'm bringing the comeback player from the other, the opposing pass catcher with the quarterback. I'm still going to do that. I'm just not, I'm not stacking as heavy as my plan was earlier in the year, because last year it was like you needed 4-player stacks, 4-player game stacks. That's just not the case this year. So I'm pretty much, it's much lighter now. I do agree. Like, yeah, when Brady connects, it's probably going to be with 2 guys. We saw that last week. So maybe you can have a couple of spots in here, but for the most part, I'm okay with just doing 1. And even if you didn't want, some of these matchups where they don't look really good, it's a big spread. You might not bring the comeback player at all. The other thing we're seeing is a lot of running backs that you could use with quarterbacks too. So
yeah, well, you have to count some of them as pass catchers. I have a strategy this week. The way I've already begun to formulate my quarterback strategy, and there are 2 pay down quarterbacks. One has higher danger than people would think. 2 dangerous pay down quarterbacks, but that can function as headless horsemen on lineups that are completely unstacked with the quarterback. And we'll get into that. I want to talk a little bit about that when we get to those games and those players. So, little teaser. Not going to say who they are. Teaser. Got to stick around. But let's get started. The way the game plan works is we're going to look at a core 4 set of games where we picked out 4 games. There's really 2 that stand out. 3 and 4, maybe 3, 4, but we got core 4 games that we're going to take a look at. We're going to do a little bit more in-depth look, betting angles, DFS breakdown, and then we'll look at all the other games and try to figure out some plays, some DFS plays, some angles that we can target for this weekend. So without further ado, let's get into it. And the first game that I've got picked out, John, for the core 4 is the Raiders at the Chiefs, with the Chiefs home 9.5-point favorites. Now, this is a non-competitive game, so why is it in the core 4? And it's because that's how shit is. That's how it goes this week. Even non-competitive games, you have to consider, the Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites. They are the highest team total on the slate. And they're taking on a Raiders team that really hasn't looked that great recently, but I think is better than minus 9.5, plus 9.5 here, in my opinion. JMO. So, John, what do you think? This game, take a look, 48-point total, 9.5-point home spread. The Chiefs haven't exactly been smashing covering, giant spreads this season.
Nope, they haven't, and Mahomes really for what's pretty much a season now, going back to last season, hasn't been that great at covering. Interesting that you would see a big underdog be the popular pick with the public, and that's what we're seeing here this week.
Oh, all right, there it is.
Yeah, so the public really likes that. It just looks like too many points. Public got to see the national game Thanksgiving where Vegas upsets Dallas. They've had their moments. This is what it's kind of, that's been the 2021 season. Some teams have looked really good some weeks, bad no one's been really great consistently all year outside of maybe a couple of maybe Arizona. And they've thrown their dud up there as a 10-point favorite as well. So, but Vegas right down, you don't know where you're getting there. I think the public thinks 10 points, like you said, 10 points looks like a lot of points against a team where Mahomes hasn't dominated anyone all that much this season. And we're seeing, though, the sharp money, which tends to be on the dog side, actually coming in on Kansas City. This line opened at 10.5, and now you're getting 9.5 in a lot of spots. So you're dipping under that, as Gargano likes to say, that football number of 10. So that's where we're at on this game. If you look at the what you're bringing up there, I think it's probably the most total yardage that we're expecting on any of the games in this slate.
I don't know about that. Dallas.
Oh, I mean, as a game.
Yeah. Okay.
The game. Yeah.
As a total, potentially. Yeah. And that's what made this part of the core four, because even in as much as it's a large spread and non-competitive or whatever, the numbers say that the Raiders can do a little bit of damage here. They're going to figure it out. They're going to figure out how to get some passing yardage going, right? Because they project at a healthy 300 passing yards. Like, where's that coming from? I don't even know.
Yeah, what's interesting? So I also have the I do the numbers where it's based on the actual points that they've scored, DraftKings points.
Yeah.
Now this game offensively on the whole is right. It's right there. It's actually the third best game, but they're all really close. The Dallas, Washington, Buffalo, Tampa. They're all really close. But what's interesting is from a wide receiver standpoint, like Vegas is in the lower tier from wide receivers, and Kansas City wide receivers aren't projected to do that well. Now the tight ends for both sides are projected to do tremendous. So this is the highest tight. It's Kelsey. It's Waller.
Yeah, because both teams feature the tight end.
Yeah. So, but this is the highest tight end projection I have. Is Kansas City this week? The quarterbacks are kind of new. Kansas City, Mahomes, he's up there in the top half, but it's nothing crazy. He's probably top 5 or 6, and Carr's in the middle. So it's not. None of these games are smash games. It's hard to say like.
There
Kansas
is one
City against
there is a
there's a game that you like, but it's like I don't have confidence after seeing this season like in any of these games. I do like the game that you like, and we'll be getting into that shortly. But Mahomes against Vegas, a team where they've given up, like you think this would be the game, but I don't know. I'm not necessarily so.
Yeah, I'm looking at this one. So, yeah, I'm agree with you. The Raiders are traditionally known as weak against the tight end. Like, that's a thing with the Raiders defense going back a few years. So maybe Kelsey bounces back here, but one has to acknowledge that Kelsey's been a massive disappointment this year overall as a player. Doesn't mean he's not great. All that, he could pop off for 30 any game, 22 likely outcome most of the time, but definitely been a little bit disappointing, and paying up for Kelsey is a lineup ruiner a lot of the time. And especially this week, it's not that easy to just randomly take luxury spots at the tight end position. I don't know if Waller's even going to be back for this game. He might be, he might not be. It looks like he might be back. If he's not back, I guess Foster Moreau carries some interest DFS purposes. The guy who's actually standing out to me, it's really interesting, is Josh Jacobs, who is a player I have not played, not rostered, or owned even once this whole season. Not once. But with the demise of Kenyon Drake, a.k.a. the Dreezy, Josh Jacobs is getting all the touches for the Raiders, and 9 targets, 9 receptions last week. 9 targets. So the other bonus situation, John, for for Josh Jacobs is because they don't really have a lot of pass catchers on Vegas now that, Ruggs is gone and Waller's been a little dinged up, and, they don't really have anybody else that they could rely on. Renfro is very limited in the type of routes he's running. So they're throwing more to Josh Jacobs. And 9 targets last week, we could probably see the same. I kind of look at Jacobs and say, you know what? Normally, I never play him as an underdog because they go to Drake. They go to the pass catcher. There's a little Jalen Richard risk here because I do believe Jalen Richard is on this team. Let me check. Let me double check it. I'm pretty sure. Not to say. Oh,
you have it correct.
Wait a minute, but he got the COVID. Hold on.
Oh, is he COVID? Yes, he is. Yeah,
That's
he's on
new.
IR. Yeah, COVID list.
All right, so he's on the COVID list.
Yeah,
which actually
all about Jacobs.
That does further increase the interest in Jay. All right.
Now got Peyton. They got Peyton Barber, who they used him a lot in that Miami game earlier this year.
Peyton Barber's not coming in when they're down for the passing game work. Peyton Barber's the guy that really. What's the threat? If they're behind, they're not going to throw it to Peyton Barber.
No.
So yeah. So hopefully Josh Jacobs is going to be in that game regardless of situation. And he's just really interesting for me in this game as one of the better plays. John, I hope it's your thing, your internet that's cutting out, not mine, and people can see me. Let me know in the comments if my internet's going out. I'm seeing a little bit of issues on your end, John. So I just want to make sure that's not my internet, but yours, so that I can keep talking.
You haven't cut out on me. Maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, COVID last week. So we'll see if Richard does come back. I like Jacobs just a little bit less. Oh, it's him. It's not there. It's you. It's not me. It's you. There we go.
I meant to plug in. That's what I meant to do. I usually plug in before these and hardwire, but I forgot.
That's what's up. All right. You got me a little nervous there. And then I lose my train when I'm like, hey, can they see me? All right, so we are good to go. So looking at this game though, on the flip side, Chiefs, of course, everything goes on the Chiefs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is in play. Heavy favored game. Hill, Kelsey, the whole deal. I usually don't wind up stacking Mahomes very much in these games because he's so expensive. It's such an expensive pairing with Mahomes, Hill, Mahomes, Kelsey. It does, especially in a non-competitive game, it does, limit your lineups a little bit, but that's the way I would go in this one. All right. Next game on the core 4. This is a pretty good one. We got the Cowboys at the Washington Football Club, with the Cowboys coming in as road 4.5-point favorites, 47.5-point total. And John, the Washington has been very generous to opposing quarterbacks this season, giving up, I think they're 28th ranked in fantasy points allowed to the position. Maybe it's 27th at this point, fantasy points allowed to the position. So, when you see Washington, you have to think play quarterback against them. Cowboys have all of their weapons, all of them. For the early, maybe one of the few times this season between the wide receiver trio. You got Dalton Schultz out there. You got Gallup in the game, Lamb and Cooper. All of the weapons are healthy for the Cowboys, and they got the dual-headed monster now going at running back. So, Cowboys offense looks pretty good, and Washington is pretty much an offense that focuses on just 2 players. Antonio Gibson with J.D. McKissic out has been spectacular. Go right back to that. And, of course, Terry McLaurin, when Heineke can deliver him the football, looks good. What do you think of this number here? 4.5 points on the road. Washington been playing pretty well lately.
They have been playing much better. It's pretty neutral as far as where the sharp money's coming in and where basically the public is very neutral on this game, which I think is kind of expected. I think the number's right here. Again, it's been a difficult season all around, but you don't know what you're getting here. You get Dallas is coming off of they had 2 Thursday night games now, so they get a little bit of a rest coming into this one. You had mentioned Washington from a standpoint of how much they've given up to the quarterback. The thing that gets me in this game, and I get why we have it on as the core 4. Take a look at what Washington's done the last few weeks, though, against the quarterback. Right, so they're trending in the right. Like, this is now suddenly becoming the Washington defense that we anticipated in the beginning of the season. I'm just going to give you like DraftKings points. Now, okay, since they played Green Bay, they gave up 24.6 to Green Bay. They played Denver, not a great quarterback, but 12-6-2. They played Brady, 15 points they gave up. Now, Carolina, they gave up 26 points, but then against Seattle, and that was Wilson, 19.5 points. And then last week with Vegas, 12.3 points. So if you look early in the season, they didn't give up anything, they gave up 42 points to Buffalo and that really skewed the numbers with Allen. Everything else was like mid-20s and higher. So they're trending in the right direction. So you worry here where Dallas hasn't, Dallas had that good week against Vegas from a fantasy standpoint, but they've had their bad weeks. Kansas City was a bad week. Last week, not a ton of fantasy points. They look good in the game, but so I don't know. I don't know what to expect. My gut tells me that Washington's actually going to play this game. It'll be a lower scoring game. I don't think this is going to wind up being the game that we like from a DFS standpoint. I don't think this is going to be the best game on the board.
I don't know about the best game. I do like it from a DFS perspective, more for the sneakiness of it. I think a lot of people are going to focus on just one Buffalo at Tampa game and maybe a couple of other secondary games. So I think this one's going to go a little bit under the radar, which is one of the reasons I do like it a little bit. Not from the Dallas side. So here's what's interesting. Dallas is really Dak. I think Dak can have a big game. He could, right? Washington's been better versus the run in the past, but it's hard to again. Dak is tricky because he's got 4 weapons to choose from, and it's really difficult to narrow down. I think Michael Gallup is priced a little bit too high for his role, and on both of the sides, you've got Amari Cooper, who I always kind of like because I know he can pop off, and he's priced probably correctly. Interesting little stack, but if they're not going to run the shit out of Zeke, so to speak, if they're going to throw, then Dallas usually puts up good numbers. And on the Washington side, I just like Gibson. I mean, you got to like Gibson. He's getting so much volume with no McKissick out there that as long as McKissick isn't playing, you got to go right back. This guy's getting 30 touches every game. He's getting tons and tons of passing game work. And the nice thing for me about Gibson is when the team falls behind, it's not like they're going to bring in McKissick for the hurry up. It's going to be Gibson because McKissick's not there. So much like with Jacobs, Josh Jacobs, right? McKissick's going to probably be out there almost regardless of the game flow. And that's what I like in a lower cost running back. Give me a guy who's going to get a ton of touches. So there is some fantasy goodness here. As far as this being the highest scoring game of the week, I don't think it'll be that per se, but I think that both pieces on Washington, because there's such a focused offense between just Gibson and Terry McLaurin, both of those guys, and now that Logan Thomas is out, raise that bar up a little bit. No more Logan Thomas to worry about. Ricky Seals-Jones, not the same. So you've got basically 2 guys that the entire offense will pretty much run through. I like that. It gives both of them a lower chance of failing. Not that we're playing McLaurin as a straight up play most of the time, but it lowers his chance of failing, and Gibson becomes really just a really great play. So I do like a little bit of the DFS angles here. Dallas side, again, Dak can pop off at any time. It's just a matter of how much he's going to be owned versus how much leverage we can get against the field. I've come to the point where it's a math equation. Ownership versus his chance of actually being in the nuts. And if the ownership is below, we want to be a little bit above it and just leverage it. And if the ownership is too high, we just want to go below it and just do the math. My 75% weighted coin theory of DFS in play. So
got to be careful with Dallas against running backs, though. Really good this year.
Yeah, I just think it doesn't matter because if you got a pass catcher, you got a pass catcher. Like as long as they throw to the running back, it doesn't matter.
Well, I'm just saying against points that they've given up to running backs, though, they are second best. They're second best in the league right now.
Interesting. That is interesting.
Yeah, they passed Tampa. It's New Orleans, Dallas, and Carolina and Baltimore. Like those are the top teams against running backs. I didn't even realize it with Dallas.
Why does the power ranking continue to? I mean, has it been touchdown regression? Because the power rankings show a good amount of healthy yardage for Washington here. 125.
That's so it's 2 different things. I mean, it's kind of calculated the same way. That's strictly based on yardage. So perhaps they're giving up the yardage, but they're just not giving up the touchdowns. I'd have to look at it deeper, but they're not giving up much as way in the way of fantasy points to
could it be touchdown regression?
That could be a good call. So that could be something to look at where Dallas just hasn't given up goal line stuff. I have to look at it deeper.
There we go.
That's a good possibility. They're just not giving up touchdowns to, maybe they're just giving up a lot of big plays.
There we go. And as a reminder, if you guys want John Statsational Alessia's breakdowns, if you want his Survivor picks, which have been spectacular, man, riding to a championship in Survivor. If you want his bet of the day, you got to download the Sharp app. Just go to the Android or Apple store, download the Sharp app, and you get a lot of John's breakdowns, his Sharp Academy sports betting training course. It's all there free. It's really awesome. Make sure you check it out. Support the show, support John, grab the Sharp app. And awesome player prop data. We have so many things going on the Sharp app.
Here, I just did a quick look. Dallas has only given up one running back touchdown.
That's what's up. So it's just a touchdown thing. They're not giving up the touchdowns to the running back, which is real. That's kind of like how New England plays, where they limit touchdowns from running backs. Like you can't score. And maybe Dallas is playing that style of defense. So that is noteworthy. It's noteworthy.
Arizona has yet to give up a touchdown to the running back.
That's Arizona?
Yeah.
Also very noteworthy. That's incredible. Those are really good stats. I love it. All right. Next up in the core four, we've got the game of the week. Actually, we'll go to 49. We'll go to the secondary game first. We got the 49ers at the Bengals. 49ers on the road, 1.5 point favorite with a game total of 48.5 points. John, man, I got to tell you something here. Why are the Bengals why are the Bengals home underdogs here?
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are asking themselves, and you ask a very good question because you know what that means usually. That means it's like, are they just sucking me in to bet Cincinnati? And that's what it looks like the Sharps are thinking because they're taking San Francisco in this game.
The Sharps are taking San Francisco?
Sharps are taking San Francisco, which at bet, like these teams look kind of even at best, and I think you can make the argument where Cincinnati might even be a little bit better. Some people may say, and yet here we are at home, they're getting points. So that's one, the red flag has to go off a little bit, and you got to look at it. But sharp money is coming in on San Francisco, so beware before you bet that game this week. Let me kind of look at where I've got them this game on my fantasy numbers. Yeah, I mean, we've gotten in the core. It's a lukewarm game on the projections for me. Nothing particularly stands out. The quarterbacks I've got, they're projected right right around 20 points, both quarterbacks. The game looks super even. Actually, this is something I've been looking at. I don't know if it's going to potentially be something I can incorporate into my handicapping, but the fantasy points and how that plays with actually handicapping the games. So San Francisco is actually projected at least slightly more points here than Cincinnati, if that means anything. So, it does go in, it coincides with that 1 point spread.
These numbers, they don't look good.
Well, when you're looking at that number, yeah, I'm looking at something else, but you're looking at my the power rankings. Yeah, it's lukewarm from how they performed against the how each team has performed on fantasy standpoint and against the teams, fantasy points given up. So it's not a game I particularly am in love with here. The one thing that's interesting is from San Francisco, the hard thing here to look at on these numbers. And even though the rushing numbers, it's crazy that it's coming up so low for San Francisco. They've really, to me, if you've been watching them, they've gotten that offense going with the running. They're running with the wide receivers, which I love. And it's been really difficult to stop. It's something unusual. Like teams will do it here and there. They're using it as part of the offense now. So they're so committed to running the ball that they're just giving it to their best players and they're just trying to get them on these, on these sweeps with these, with their wide receivers, and it's been effective. So, so it's a little hard to just look at the pure, rushing yardage, passing yards, and figure out which, is it going to be the running backs or the wide receivers? I think San Francisco utilizing the wide receivers the way they have, I have to give a little bit of a nod to the wide receivers here, but I don't project this game as being a game that you necessarily have to go crazy on.
No, definitely not. Listen, the big thing with San Francisco is Deebo Samuel going to play or not? Is Eli Mitchell going to play or not? I would not fuck those lines. I don't care what the Sharps are doing. It's too early in the week because the Sharps don't know if Eli Mitchell is going to play, and they don't know if Deebo Samuel is going to play. And for me, the 49ers team changes dramatically without one or both of those guys. Without both, we're talking about a Brandon Ayuk and featured wide receiver. George Kittle, of course, is great, but with Jermichael Hasty holding down the fort at running back, and exactly what you just said, a team that wants to run the football heavily. When they're not able to run the football heavily, San Francisco, they don't win. That it's that simple. They're not the kind of team that's going to carry the game via the pass. It's one of the reasons why Brandon Ayuk just hasn't been that great, is because that style of passing isn't their thing. Even Deebo Samuel, who's been spectacular, a lot of what he's doing is via the run, or he's just a monster out there. He rips the football out of the air. You just throw it towards him. Love Deebo. It's his bike. Punk. But
look at rushing numbers.
He's been great.
9 yards rushing, 66 yards rushing. That's and he's scoring touchdowns.
Yeah, no, he's been fantastic. Been a fantasy asset. He's on every fantasy team I own. I talked about Deebo in the offseason as someone where I didn't understand why he's going after Ayuk. So I was able to get him in every fantasy league that I'm in, and he's essentially helped me make it to the play. I kind of don't mind if he doesn't play this week because I need him for the fantasy playoffs fully healthy. Let's keep it real. But as far as this game goes, I think if Deebo's out, I don't like San Francisco. I like the bet on the Bengals a lot. And if Eli Mitchell is out, I definitely like the Bengals side of this bet quite a bit. You've got the Joe Mixon stud off a dud narrative in play here. So, forgetting the numbers, it's late in the season, but the stud off a dud narrative, you got to play that most weeks as long as Mixon is healthy. I could see the Bengals turning it around. They had a rough one. They're coming off a rough, horrible loss. They bounce back here. They bounce back against the 49ers. Joe Mixon back in the nuts lineup for the 6th time this season, potentially, as the Millie Maker nuts play. This guy is doing it like 40% of the time so far this season. Seems like we need some regression there. But overall, yeah, I don't mind this game. But more so, we have two situations that are so volatile still with not knowing Mitchell or Deebo Samuel, that number one, if I'm betting it, I'm definitely betting. I feel like San Francisco's priced as if both those guys are playing. So if I'm betting it, I'm betting the Bengals. And if one or two of those guys don't play, I feel like I won my bet already. Because the 49ers are going to have a very, very tough time being competitive. And the Bengals have a lot of weapons. They're a better defense. I think the Bengals are a better team. Better quarterback. Really good weapons, Chase and Higgins and Mixon. And I think across the board, the only thing that San Francisco has on these guys is probably a better blocking offensive line for the run game and certainly a better tight end. But, if they don't have a running back, I think it screws them. San Francisco just did not play as well without Eli Mitchell out there. So we got to see what happens with that guy. He's got a concussion. We'll see what happens. All right. Yeah, I'm on the Bengals side of that bet. I know it's the donkey side. I don't care. That's usually where I'm at. I'm riding the donkey.
You're a good barometer.
I rode the donkey on Monday night. I was telling Gargano this last night. I rode the donkey on the under bet. Nice and slow up the hill.
That game got absolutely, that was like 45, 46 and a half and down to 40 and a half quickly, obviously because of that weather.
Smashed it.
Yeah, there was very little chance that game was going over. At all. There wasn't much of a chance. Even at the end there, it's tough in the NFL where you're still good with the touchdown late. I was like, dude, score, baby. I don't care. I could have won my Buffalo side of that bet too. Yeah, just a little tip, by the way. People get freaked out, and we're getting into this part of the season where you're going to have snow games and rainy, nasty games. It's the wind. It's all about the wind. That's for totals when you're betting totals. Wind kills totals. Snow and rain, you get a lot of turnovers, right? Teams get conservative in the wind. They try to run the ball like you saw. But snow and rain, you can't hold on to the ball. You get turnovers, so sometimes you get high scores, so you don't get necessarily the games. A lot of times you'll see the line go down because, it's going to be heavy snow. But unless it's one of those situations where they can't, it's windy, snowy, nothing's going to happen, and you're going to get like no points scored at all. Just a little bit of snow and a little bit of rain sometimes makes for an over because the ball gets slick. Get a lot of defensive scores, which in DFS look to play. Those are the games you want to be playing.
Yeah, it's don't overreact. And by the way, because of that Monday night game and how intensely affected it was by the wind, for the rest of the season, people are going to overreact to wind games as well, thinking it's going to be like that, where more often than not, the wind game doesn't do anything anyway, because you get a wind projection, and then by the time game starts, it's not as windy out. And it's like, all right, didn't really do anything. That was a very unique, I've seen a few games like that over the years, but that was much more unique, I think, than people and unusual than people think, where you have that massive wind in your face where you just really can't throw into it. That rarely happens. So even when you're told wind, don't overreact, because reacting to it, that's what's going to kill you. All right, let's go to the fourth game on the core four, John. We have got the Bills at the Bucs, and this one is the precious. No reaction. Still doesn't know what it is. Forget it. Still,
every time you say it, I think of that movie, the movie Precious.
And no, it's not the movie
Precious. I know it's not, but that's the image that goes in my head. Plus,
why does that movie in your head?
It's the only thing I know. I never saw whatever it is that you're talking about.
It's Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, I never saw it, man.
It's the greatest trilogy ever made.
I very well may be out. I mean, I'm going to assume that you're taking Rocky out of the equation here. Even though Rocky wasn't a trilogy, but let's assume they stopped at Rocky 3.
No. There are other trilogies, but
The Godfather, but Godfather 3 pisses me off.
Yeah, it's Lord of the Rings. All right, forget it.
I know it's Lord of the Rings, man, but I don't get it. I don't get it.
The precious game. We got the Bills at the Bucs. Cannot fail. 53.5 point. Famous last words. 53.5 point total. Bucs home. 3.5 point favorites. Bills coming off a heartbreaker. The wind game, going to want to get back into it. Brady coming off a full GOAT form game. We were all over Brady last week. That worked out. Week before, it didn't work out. That's how it goes. Up one week, down the next. One of the nice things about the Bucs, John, is that they play such, and the Bills will oblige. The Bucs play. I don't see any scenario here where, Allen's not throwing for touchdowns in this game. Like, they're not running for touchdowns against the Bucs. The Bills don't really want to run for touchdowns anyway. That's not part of their game. And so, all in all, this looks like a great spot for both teams, but definitely Josh Allen to bounce back off that rough game. What do you think from a betting angles point of view? Because I kind of picked the side here, and I'm not really, I'm just kind of feeling the stud off a dud narrative.
Yeah, well, the public's kind of looking at Tampa from a, they're taking about 65%.
Okay.
Both the money and the tickets. So it looks pretty, not getting a lot of sharp action on it, but right now that's the way it looks. Like the public likes the Tampa side of this game. So, Tampa's playing a little bit better. Buffalo, this is the crazy thing. If you look at my rankings, people are going to criticize it. And I'm like, listen, if I was writing rankings out based on my eye test, then it wouldn't be Buffalo number one, but Buffalo's number one. You go to the rankings, not the right. So Buffalo's number one in the rankings, and it's like, how could a 7-5 team? It's just how the numbers go. If you look, and a lot of that has to do with scoring margin. They've had the largest scoring margin in football. New England's actually too, because they've beaten up on the bad teams. I wrote it up in if you're on the Sharp app, I had a little write up on the power rankings, and you look at who Buffalo has not beaten very many good teams. They beat Kansas City, I believe. Right, this year they had that Kansas City win, and that was their only. That's their only win with a team over 500.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's correct. If I'm, I only wrote the article two days ago, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. If you look at their, Buffalo might. I mean, there's a chance Buffalo doesn't make the playoffs. It's not going to happen when you look at the teams that they're competing with here and the games they have left. But obviously, this is a game they could lose. They're staring at 7-6. They still have the Jets left, and they've got some winnable games left. But this is not the season that we were expecting from Buffalo. But from just from the rating standpoint, this is a better team than maybe the record indicates. But these are the top two teams. It should be a great game. Again, though, I know you think this is it's fantasy goal, but 53.5 is the line that we're getting excited about now. It used to be like a 58 point total. Like, this is the game. So,
well, in fairness, if this was last season, this game would have a 57.5 point total on it.
Certainly would have been.
This exact game, 57 easy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, just looking at it from the when I'm looking at the fantasy points where I'm projecting each position, this is the highest game for a quarterback that's on the and that's the Josh Allen side of this game. And Brady's actually not projected well because Buffalo's defense. See, that's what makes the game scary. Like Buffalo's defense has been really good. Buffalo's the best team against the quarterback this year.
Walsh, a diehard Bucs fan, is not biased at all with his Bucs win. So here's a couple things about those defenses, John. So Tre'Davious White for the Bills, done for the season, right? They've lost their best cornerback. That's legit, and that does harm the Buffalo defense a smidge. So we got to take those numbers with a little bit of grain of salt because that injury is very, very recent. Flip side, the Bucs have not been just great in terms of their secondary. They do run a style of defense that stops the run and essentially dares you to pass. And they lost their best guy, the High Chief Jamel Dean, I believe, for the season as well. Actually, I need to fact check me on that, but I don't believe Jamel Dean has been playing. Somebody, if you guys are in the comments, actually let me know if I'm wrong on that. But so the Bucs have been down some cornerbacks as well. So I think there's a lot of passing game goodness potential here. If the Bucs can, I just don't see anybody shutting Brady down in Tampa. Like that's going to be a tall ask. I think the Bills defense has been very, very good, both against the run and the pass. So you would imagine that, again, I refuse to believe that Leonard Fournette is all of a sudden this ball hogging, score hogging player. I think people have overestimated Leonard Fournette. He had a good game a couple weeks ago, and I get it. He scored 40 points, took all the points from Brady. That happened. We all saw it, but that was an anomaly. That's not what Fournette has been part of this offense for 2 years. We have enough data on Fournette to know, and the style of play that this game plays, that this team plays, that it's generally not going to be Fournette stealing all the tutties. Tom Brady likes to throw for touchdowns. They got Gronk back. Gronk is 2 touchdowns a game every week when he plays. That's just what he does. 2 touchdowns every week. And no Antonio Brown means you've got Godwin and Evans, much, much tighter target shares. Last week it was Godwin. That means this week it's going to be Evans because everybody's going to play Godwin. I love this game for DFS purposes for that reason. You could just, when you play Brady, you're going to pair him with 2 of these guys. There's only 3 to choose from. You're going to pair him with 2 of them, and you're probably going to do well. If you've done that every time, Brady doesn't win you the tournament unless he scores 28 plus fantasy points. He doesn't get to 28 with just one guy. It takes 2. It takes 2 to make your thing go right. It takes 2 to make it out of sight.
That's true.
That's just what it is. That's real. That's philosophy. A wise woman once said those words. Don't know who that woman was. I think
it was a man. It was a man.
It was a man?
Yes.
Why is it got to be a wise man? That's very misogynistic of you.
What you're referring to.
Who was the man that said those wise words?
Oh God,
Rick James or something?
No. It was Rob Bass, man.
Rob Bass. Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. That is a wise, very wise.
And then he had Joy and Pain, which was basically the same beat.
Yeah.
Joy, pump it up.
I remember.
Pain. Yeah.
Nice. It takes 2 with Tom Brady to make your thing go right. And on the flip side, I really like the Josh Allen side of this game for the bounce. I like the Bills. I'm betting the Bills. Taking the Bills. Bounce back game.
If you're taking the Bills, then you don't like my pick of you just talked about Fournette. I like Fournette in this game, actually. So yeah.
Fournette's too expensive.
Well, I'm just I like to talk on Thursdays before I start looking at prices. But 7,400, no, not in love with it. But even still, he's going to be in the teens for me on in MME.
You're going to have him in the teens. Yeah, I don't know. It's not for me. I think at that price, I studied Fournette's productivity over the last 2 seasons, and he's only really produced enough fantasy points to justify this salary once or twice. They're
throwing him the ball a lot.
They are, but look out for Ron Jones coming back. Look out for the competition. Look out for it. They're running Ron Jones Jr. a little bit more than you would think. Last week, no, but seasonal, yes. And I actually expect it to revert a little bit to where you'll see Jones in there for that 15, 25%, get some carries. I just don't think that Fournette has been the guy that you want when he's at 7,400. I like Fournette at 6K. That's what it is. When he's at 7,400, all of a sudden, he's got to put up 7,420. He's got to get you 29 fantasy points to help you win a tournament, which I believe he could. But, I mean, you're placing the odds of that, let's say, in the 15, 20% range. I might only have it in like the 5 to 8% range of things that might happen with Fournette, just because he's only done it once or twice in the last 2 seasons combined. So I'm just going to stay away a little bit from Fournette. I also don't like his salary level. If you just take a general look, I know you haven't looked at the salaries yet because you like the unbiased look at the slate. But when I look at it, he's kind of in no man's zone right over here at 7,400 on DraftKings. You could get to Kamara, who's live for 5 touchdowns, just for a couple pennies more. And that already to me is concerning. Plus, I really want to be down in this 6K range if I'm going to get that style of player. So we'll see. Oh, you're not seeing my screen. That's always fun. I thought you were seeing this, but when you're Fournette, like right here, you've got Kamara just above him. Kamara's live for 5 touchdowns against the Jets. Like that could happen. Eckler in a game where his team's favored massively. Just the other running back options, if I'm paying up, are a little sexier than Fournette. That's all. That's all for me. All right. Yeah, but I like the Bills side of this game. I like Josh Allen to bounce back personally off the loss. I just, Bucs coming off the win. I always play teams coming off a loss. I feel like that's my thing now.
Yeah, I kind of like the Bills on this as a bet.
You're on the Bills side?
Yeah.
Nice.
I typically don't bet against Brady, so I probably won't bet it. But I do like the Bills side of this game.
Never fun to bet against the GOAT. All right, so that covers the core 4 games for NFL Week 14. And let's take a look at some of these other games to see if we can glean some betting angles or DFS angles of interest. All right, first up, we have got the Ravens at the Browns. A repeat of a game we saw a couple of weeks ago. Ravens on the road, 2.5-point underdogs, 42.5-point total. John, this one, betting angles,
The Sharps love Cleveland.
Yeah, I like Cleveland.
You like Cleveland too?
I do.
I just don't like, this is just, I hate, this is a general statement, not this week. I just hate Cleveland. I hate watching that team play.
Scott Newman is going to come at you.
I partially say that because I know Scott's watching.
All right, because
then I'll get it. Because I enjoy, he doesn't DM me all the time, so I like to prompt the DM so I could get to chat with him.
There it is.
But he'll yell at me in the DM.
We got a lot of Browns fans in DFS Army,
and I was never an anti-Browns guy, but I've turned into the anti-Browns guy because I do like to tweak and bust balls, but they're just an awful team to watch. I mean, quite frankly. Baker's it's just a boring team.
They gotta make a decision on Baker Mayfield and potentially paying him $36 million a year. My boy has not proven that he's worth $36 million. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do in the offseason. And I'm interested from some of our Browns fans as far as if they want Baker paid like that. But as far as this game goes, the reason I like the Browns is they're going to lean on the run. They're going to play nasty defense. And I've just not seen where the Ravens and Lamar have done well against good defensive teams. So what I think will happen here is the Ravens, both teams will kind of play it slow and steady. They're going to run the football quite a bit. They're not going to worry about like scoring touchdowns per se. They'll take the field goals. And what we're going to wind up with is a close game at the end that could go either way. And if you're giving me, essentially a half a point for the home team here because they're not getting the -3, like I see the Browns doing what they want to do here, which is just running the football the whole time, controlling the game with the run, and again, potentially squeaking out a 3-point win.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. But
I don't like any of it for DFS.
For DFS, the only thing I like here is and it's hard. I hate and you're going to jump down my throat right away, like the Cleveland tight ends, but you've got a couple of them there. But Baltimore, if you look at the numbers, has been one of the worst teams against the tight end. So if you do get a Hooper type of game, I think as a sneaky play, it's 3,400 on DraftKings, which I'm not in love with either. But there's some potential there. That's about it.
The problem with that approach is it's going to be Njoku.
That's the problem. Yeah. I mean, you're going to take Hooper and then Njoku gets, somehow gets 2 touchdowns. And if that happens, then the running back winds up being, Chubb winds up being useless. If it's the tight end, this is one of the, I just don't think there's going to be enough points scored in this game to go around.
No,
so you can have a piece of it, but
it's
either the running back or the tight ends on Cleveland. I mean, Lamar's always.
No Lamar. This is an easy.
I don't love it.
He's priced up too high. This is an easy ignore game for me. When Njoku was in the Millie Maker nuts earlier this season, I looked at that lineup and went, well, I could have made 1,000 lineups and that wasn't getting that. Like the Donovan Peoples-Jones week, the same thing. Like every once in a while, a player from Cleveland just pops off out of nowhere. That's not a running back. And you're like, well, I wasn't going to have him. And it's never Jarvis Landry either. It's always one of the randoms. And, an Njoku. And I just looked at that lineup and went, I could have made 10,000 lineups. I wasn't hitting that one. So, not my week. Wasn't going to be my week. Let's move on. And that game kind of feels like that. I'm not interested in anything from it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a game that'd be interesting in, but I do like I do think it can go over the over 40 where we at the 42 and a half. I could see 42 and a half, 40 43. I could see that, but still, if it scores 47, it's still not a game that we're going to love.
Next up, we've got a really strange one between the Jaguars and the Titans, with the Titans at home as 8.5-point favorites on a 44-point total game. And John, I said, it's a weird one because the Titans, they're so injured. There's no one left. Don't know any names. Akine Westbrook Akine, D'Onta Foreman. I mean, it's a battle of the nameless ones here. And of course, the Jaguars have just been so bad. But my question for you is, could this be the game where the Jaguars actually are competitive? Like they're up against a pretty bad Titans defense who's not going to be worked up for this game, but rather they're coming in heads down, feeling sullen. No, they know they have nobody on offense on the team. They're playing a crappy Jaguars team. This is a team that beat the Bills, that beat the Chiefs, that beat the Rams. They beat everybody. And now, oh, how the mighty hath fallen. We're looking at them like, could they lose to the Jaguars? Like in your Survivor, are you excited to take the Titans this week?
No. That's funny because a lot of people, there's not many people still alive, but those who are, a lot of them have Tennessee, and it's just a tricky spot.
This is the week where Tennessee's wiping out.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. Where I do like Jacksonville plus the points here. Jacksonville's issues have really been more offensively than defensively. They've been atrocious.
Their coach is terrible
on offense. Yeah, I know you don't like the coach. I'm not a big fan either. But from a DFS standpoint, I can't see a whole lot that you love in this game at all. So yeah, I don't particularly like this game.
I'll give you a couple. I'll give you a couple things here. I did look it over. There's a couple things here. So I'm gonna have a hard time backing D'Onta Foreman, but he is the cheapest viable running back on the slate. He is the cheapest viable, but I got a hard time backing him. I think James Robinson also very difficult to back him right now. Just the badness of the Jaguars offense and his injuries concern me a little bit. He's not priced down enough to really reflect kind of that scenario. But I had a slight thought about Marvin Jones Jr. and he's really priced down now. Like we saw Marvin Jones. I like players when the salary comes down, right? Because it tells you that the field is off of them. The reason the salary comes down on DraftKings is demand has gone down. And so they reduce the price to increase demand on the player, right? And at some point you go, hey, wait a second. There were times this season where we were paying $5,900, $5,500, $5,700 for Marvin Jones Jr. And now he's all the way down to $4,500 in a really good matchup where part of the problem with the Jaguars is they've played decent defenses, and we've seen defenses matter. And when you put up these rookie quarterbacks against a good defense, they absolutely get destroyed. We'll talk about, Wilson against New Orleans in a bit, but when they're not up against an elite defense, but rather the Titans defense that's bleeding the 31st, they're ranked 31st in fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. In other words, the team you want quarterbacks against. Is it possible? Again, the Rams, sure, they whooped his ass. San Francisco, fine. Your Bills, Colts, of course, they're good defensive teams. Atlanta, actually he did okay against Atlanta. So you see some of the discrepancy between when they face a good defense and when they face a trash defense, right? This is a trash defense. So what if Marvin Jones Jr. can have a good game with Trevor Lawrence, a.k.a. the love child of Furio and Carmela from The Sopranos? The love child of Furio and Carmela. Did you hear that last night on the show?
No, I didn't. I was out last night, so I missed the show.
The love child of Furio and Carmela on The Sopranos.
You know what? That's pretty fucking awesome, because it is.
Do you not see it? It can never be unseen.
It can never be unseen. Yeah, it really is. That's amazing. I assume that was a Gargano. You're not that witty.
No, he can't. Well, he said, he started saying he looks like someone from The Sopranos, and I was like, Furio. I did. Yes. I did get to that.
Yes, it totally is. That's amazing. That's fucking
so
awesome.
maybe this is a game where Marvin Jones Jr. I can't go to Laviska Shenault. No. But Marvin Jones Jr., Oshag Hennessy, I don't mind it.
I like that call, because what you said with Tennessee against quarterbacks, but against wide receivers, they're the third worst team against wide receivers in the league. So
even better.
Certainly could pop off there. I like that.
Even better. And, and Westbrook Akine. Back to back. Marvin Jones Jr., 4,500. I'm not going to be scared of it. All right, you ready? Next up, we've got the Saints at my beloved New York Jets. Saints coming in as road 5.5-point favorites. 43-point total on this game. John, Jets, man, are they good now? They had a mildly competent offensive performance last week against the Eagles.
Are they good? Yeah, I mean, we'll find out. I mean, this New Orleans defense is pretty good, but yeah, we're getting a lot of the sharp money seems to think the Jets are good, because they're coming in on the Jets here this week.
Really?
5.5. Yeah.
Oh, I don't like the sharp money's call here at all.
Yeah, that's.
I don't like. I'm going to be the donkey money and tell you, do not bet the Jets. Are you crazy? Against the good defense?
Against a good defense, yeah. I mean, another low total. I mean, we would get once in a while these 42, 43 totals in the last few years. Now it's like half the board is sitting here below 44. So yeah, low total. We'll find out about the Jets. I mean, let me look at it on the as far as the rankings here.
I mean, the power rankings, they're not going to be pretty. The Jets.
No. The power ranking is going to to be terrible.
You can't trust the Jets.
Jets here, the Jets project decently at the wide receiver position. I mean, running back, I've got nothing. Now from offensively, obviously you mentioned Kamara before on the Saints side. I believe he's my highest, or at least that position is the highest rank, the highest I have on the other sheet that I work on that is still private.
I've got a very intense. We need the private sheet, but
I know eventually it's coming. But Kamara, so running back, I should say, for New Orleans, this is the highest projected points scored for the position in this game is the New Orleans side. Now, interestingly, you have to kind of throw out the quarterback number, because when Taysom Hill comes in, and it kind of skews these numbers when it's whoever it is, Simeon or Winston, it's a combined number. So they're projected high for the quarterback, but they're not going to score nearly as much as the projection here. I'm
going to give you some angles about this game, because my first thought I came in with the first thought, and then I changed it. I love Taysom. He's my guy. Taysom. What up, Taysom?
Well, you love a guy who can run it. Any quarterback who can get you some rushing touchdowns, you got to love.
Love Taysom. Play him every week. right? Played him all in last week. Was all over it. When he got his first start, all in. I was a Monday night, Sunday night, whatever it was.
The Thursday night game.
Yeah, easy all in for me. And I was going to do the same. And then I started to think about this situation, right? It's like, oh, Taysom against the Jets. Sure, load him up. Right? Fine. Except there is some risk here. The Jets are a bad team. Can't stop anybody. Saints probably going to score, no problem. But Kamara's coming back. And what if Kamara eats all the touchdowns? You can have a disappointment from Taysom Hill with Kamara there because it's so easy to run against the Jets that there is real risk that Taysom doesn't need to do a whole lot. So I originally came into the week thinking easy headless horseman lineup with Taysom Hill, right? I'm just going to play him naked. I'll take the 25, and now I can play all the players from the Bucs Bills without having to pay up for Josh Allen or Tom Brady. I liked it. Interesting strategy. Then I rethought it, John, and I said, wait a second. If Kamara's back, and even better for Kamara, Mark Ingram out with the COVID. So now you got Kamara all inclusive. Now, normally you don't want to play Kamara with Taysom Hill because Taysom Hill does not check down to running backs. He doesn't throw to them. But the Jets are so bad against running backs that Kamara, just on 18 carries, could easily score 3 times and take all the touchdowns. So there's a lot of Kamara just vultures the shit out of Taysom risk here to where, Saints defense and Kamara rule the day, and we don't get the 20 plus out of Taysom that you normally would expect just about any time he's playing. So there is some risk. There's also the possibility that Taysom throws a couple touchdowns to Kamara, and it's all good. The Saints do not have wide receivers that are healthy. They have no one. And when I say no one, my boy Trey Quizzles, the chef, Traquan, the chef, not good. He's not good. He sucks. Marquez Callaway, preseason fodder. He sucks. Can't run a pattern. Traquan Smith can't catch a football. So these guys are not good. Nick Vannett, like, who are they throwing to, John? It's going to be Kamara all day. And just playing defense and leaning on Kamara. So will Taysom throw to Kamara? Will Taysom run the football? I don't know, but Taysom is not locked in for the high floor that I normally would give him just because the Jets defensively are so awful that they won't create enough resistance to where Taysom needs to do anything because Kamara's just eating them alive. So I have a nasty, scary feeling we could see the 3+ touchdown game out of Alvin Kamara here.
Yeah, the Jets have given up just a ton of points to running and some big games, right? So the only games that they've looked good against running backs was Houston and Miami.
And right. what are the two? Neither one of those teams has a running back.
No, I mean, other than that, I mean, they gave up 69 running back points in the New England game. 69 points to the running back. You remember the Derrick Henry game against them?
Unsurprising.
45 points. almost 40 points in the Buffalo game to running backs.
Unbelievable.
How about the Colts? 58 points they gave up to running backs in the Colt game. Last week, they gave up 40 points to the running backs in Philly. So, yeah, this is a scary game for Jet.
Again, it really comes down to, like, can you trust Taysom Hill with such an easy path to touchdowns for Alvin Kamara? Maybe they don't need Hill. That's a problem. I like Hill a lot more when the team's going to be playing from behind, struggling. They got to move the football. That, I don't think that's happening here. So while I think Hill is playable, the matchup is great. Buyer beware. There is some concerns there, right? So just keep it in mind. I'm not touching any Jets players against the Saints. The defense is too good, and I still don't trust that Wilson is not terrible. So where was that game? Oh, Saints-Jets. Here we go. Next up, we've got the Falcons at the Panthers. Panthers 2.5-point road favorites or home favorites. 42-point Garbaggio game total. Another shitty game total, John. It's going to be hard to glean any sort of DFS goodness from this one. Anything on either side from a betting perspective that stands out to you?
Yeah, from the betting side, with the number under 3, that's where the sharps have come in. So they like the 2.5 with Carolina on this game. So you can't get too excited from a from a DFS standpoint.
Big bet from the Wise Guy show on Carolina.
I'm sure, I know Mr. Gargano is a big Carolina guy. He's made some of his big hits have been on Carolina. This one as a favorite, but he's had them in a couple of big dog spots this year. Carolina's still looking at, they've got to kind of run the tail. I don't think they're going to get there, but outside shot that they could still get to the playoffs. I don't think it's going to happen. The only team I forget, they actually said that the Lions are still mathematically a lot. Obviously that's not going to happen. The Lions are still not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, believe it or not.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But
crazy.
Yeah. On the Panthers side of this game, they fired the offensive coordinator. They said, we're not running the football. We want to establish the run. We haven't been happy with the way that, the balance on the team. It makes sense. Why are you throwing with Cam Newton? He can't really pass very well. He doesn't have accuracy. He's a disaster out there. If you kind of put him in, he can helm a team at times, but he's a risky guy out there. You don't want him throwing a football, slinging it. It's Cam Newton, overthrower. But with that being said, from a DFS angles, number one on the Falcons side, I guess you could say that Cordero Patterson is in play every week because he just occasionally smashes, and when he does, he's taken down tournaments for you. So you've got to play a little Cordero, even in the worst of matchups like this one, which is not a good matchup. But you got to play a little Cordero. But the flip side for me, the player that stands out the most, Chuba Hubbard, interesting. Again, team going to establish the run. Chuba has no competition for touches. Interested in Chuba Hubbard. Mild interest in DJ Moore as well. He's priced pretty low. It's a very good matchup. And, his ADOT is so deep. Like, it doesn't take but a couple of receptions from Newton for Moore to pop off. And here's what I see happening, John. I see a game where the Falcons defense is just bad, right? They're bad. Newton, much like I talked about earlier with some other quarterbacks, like with Lawrence, Newton is absolutely horrible when he's up against a good defense that could pressure. You never play him against a top 20 defense, even not a top 10, top 20. You got problems. But against a bottom 10 defense like the Falcons, that's where Cam Newton's fine. He's got time to stand in the pocket. He can deliver the football. He can, plant his feet so he doesn't overthrow the wide receiver. He's not great, if he's moving around or anything, but if he's just able to plant his feet and throw it, he can usually hit a wide receiver. He's got that ability. Plus, I just think Newton's super cheap, and he does like to vulture the tutties. No Christian McCaffrey here. I like, and dare I say it, you guys know my hatred for Cam Newton. It's well known. I've made no bones about that. I think Newton is playable here as your pay down quarterback in a matchup that's really good, where he just, he doesn't do a whole lot, but he still gets you to 20 fantasy points. Finally, figures it out with his legs, throws for a couple touchdowns. Whatever it is, he gets you to 20 for 5,300 on DraftKings, John. Am I crazy? I'm not, or even stacked with DJ Moore, but I just play him headless also.
Yeah, I think that's probably the way you'd have to play it. Because I think for him to get there, he's going to have to be running the ball into the end zone. So you're going to have to get the, and
that's what he's got to do.
He can he can get two easily down at the goal line, and this could be a low scoring game, but he just gets the two touchdowns. So I could totally see that. If I played him, I'd be more apt to play him solo. That's the way I would go. I don't like much else in this game, though.
Yeah, naked Newton.
That's it.
Little Chuba Hubbard if you want. Little naked Newton.
Yeah, Atlanta is just atrocious across the board.
Panthers defense is going to be one of my favorites.
And Panthers defense is really good. That's the thing. I mean, Panthers defense is quality. They're above average against every single position from a fantasy standpoint. So
yeah, I'll be all about the Panthers defense. I'll be all about that. They're one of my favorite defense plays of the week. So yeah, I think you get some goodness on the Panthers side. Just hoping that Newton. Oh, I hate playing Newton, but hoping that Newton just can run a couple in against a bad defensive team.
It's hard to predict defense, but the best team to play defenses against has been Atlanta.
That's right. They're bleeding points. All right. Next up, we got Seattle at Houston. Seattle road 7.5 point favorites, and there's an angle here that's interesting to take a look at. But Seattle basically kind of blew their shot at having any sort of playoff run this year. last week. And the rumors, I already heard that Russell Wilson's talking about willing to waive my no trade clause for Team X and Team Y and all of that. So the rumors are swirling, and it feels like Seattle is getting ready to throw in the towel on the season. It's not our year. I don't know what's going on with them, but it's not our year. Now, sometimes that could turn around in a hurry, and against a shitty Houston team, maybe that's the time where we get the vintage Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, cooking game. But I don't know. 41 point total doesn't look so good here. Anything? Would you bet this?
Yeah, I mean, the public is all over Seattle in this game. I don't particularly like it. I don't like the game, but everyone's on Seattle. There's not a lot of money coming in on the Houston side of this game. So I guess, it's pretty understandable. Seattle, for Seattle to be a 7.5 point favorite, the way they've looked, that just shows you how bad Houston is.
Davis Mills taking over.
Yeah, with Taylor, I think it's a little bit different. It's a little bit
better. I don't know. Taylor's been shit.
He's been bad too, but they would give him. I don't. It'd be a couple more points, maybe a point and a half more, shaded towards Houston. Either way, this Houston team, there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing there from a DFS standpoint. Oddly enough, it's not the worst game. The Carolina game that we pointed at, outside of taking a shot on Cam. And there's even another game that I've got worse than this one that we probably have coming up shortly here. But yeah, I don't like this game at all. I can't really give you, I can't give you anything on here. Now, like you said, can we get a situation where, it's that one last hurrah here with Wilson and maybe a Lockett, or maybe, it could happen. The Houston is
realistically, I've got 7 years of experience with Russell Wilson that tells me that they don't press if they're leading, they don't press the issue.
100%. Yeah. Now we talk about how bad Houston, defense is. They're below average, but they're not like atrocious in any one against any one position. They're like a point worse than average against quarterbacks, 1.5 against running backs, 1.5 against wide receivers. 2.5 worse against the tight end. So it's not crazy bad. Where Seattle's actually super bad defensively is against the running back, but it's like
Houston doesn't have a running
back. Houston doesn't have a running game, and Houston is the second worst offensively in running back points scored. So
they don't have a running back of any sort of use. And you can't if Seattle. So I'll just say it like this: if Seattle had a running back that was featured, if like Chris Carson was still on the team and they had a featured running back, I'd be interested in that guy in a game like this. But since they don't, and we're going to get a three-headed weird monster between Alex Collins and Rashard Penny and Travis Homer and whoever the hell else they trot out there. It's gross. Avoid this game. DFS. There's no DFS angle. I don't even want to play Seattle defense, really. I just want to stay the hell away from that one. That game's a stinker. All right. Next up, we've got the Lions at the Broncos. Another 42.5 point stinker with the Broncos as home 8.5 point favorites. And I do have one thing. I don't think you can bet the Broncos as an 8.5 point favorite ever. They're not that kind of a scoring offense. But John, I don't know, maybe you feel different. To me, I'm not betting that game. No way.
It's a tricky game. Again, Denver's where the money's coming in, not shocking. So it's like 4-1.
Not for me. Not
money.
For me.
Yeah, no, I get it. You don't want to lay that kind of point, but the defense is pretty good, right? So, you do expect that they'll be able to hold them down. That's why you don't like this game necessarily from a fantasy perspective. But Detroit has been average against all positions except the running back position, where they've been one of the worst teams against running backs. So that makes it interesting here because Denver can run the ball in a game where they're a high favorite.
It's very simple in this game. If Melvin Gordon is out, then Javonte Williams is a lock button play this week. When I say lock button, I mean even you, John, should lock it in. You make it 150 lineups, 300 lineups. I don't care how many fucking lineups you make. I will lock that shit in because the Broncos are a team that wants to run the football. They're gonna run the football. They're like, it's like the Browns. And I don't like the Browns, but when Dearness Johnson is the sole starter for the Browns, you play Dearness Johnson. It's the same thing here. First of all, Javonte Williams is elite talented and 8.5-point favorite at home. If he's the only guy, if we don't have to contend with Melvin Gordon, then we can lock button all in core play on Javonte Williams. Don't even think twice about it. Be like, I took care of that one variable in my lineup. I've only got 7 or 8 left to worry about. And that's how you play it, right? That's how That's how I'm going to play it.
Well, I can't argue with you because yes, they are going to run the ball against a team that can't stop the run, and they're a big favorite. So, I mean, it's got all the makings there, and it's a good price. So
it's a lock button situation. I'm just waiting. I want it. Make it easy for me. Make it easy for me. I like eliminating variables, John. And when I can eliminate that one variable, then there's only these other ones that I got to worry about. We had a couple weeks ago where we loaded up on these 3 running backs last week. That's why we crushed it last week, because I was like, Gibson and Eli Mitchell. And there was like 3 running backs that I could just load up on, David Montgomery. And I was like, all right, this made this week easy. I just don't have to worry about running backs. I just got to choose a good QB stack and we'll kick some ass. So we kind of get that this week if Melvin Gordon is out. Stay down, Melvin. Stay down. One more week. Please. Give me one more week. Make it easy. That'll make it easy. All right. That's enough on that game. Piece of shit game. Don't play anyone from the Lions ever. They stink. All right. Here's another stinker between the Giants and the Chargers. And when a team is a 10-point favorite, as the Chargers are at home, in a game with just a 43-point total, that the fantasy football odds makers do not think the Giants are going to produce a lot of offense in this game. But can you lay 10 on the Chargers against Jake Fromm or Mike Glennon?
Man, Glennon looked bad.
He stinks.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jake Fromm is the unknown. Could be Mike White. We don't know.
Legend.
Could be. What if Jake Fromm comes out and he's awesome?
That would be a big what if. The Chargers defense has been pretty good. I mean, they've been good against the quarterbacks, been good against wide receivers. From a betting standpoint, we are seeing more of the money come in on the Chargers, not shockingly here on this game. But the Chargers defensively, I mean, this is not a spot you want to take an unknown or backup quarterback. Chargers should be able to handle it. So from that standpoint, I there's not a lot that I like.
Chargers defense is the only play here. You can play the Chargers defense. Austin Eckler, do you pay up for Austin Eckler in the spot?
Boy, it's very tempting because the Giants are just awful against running back, and this is a situation where you could see Eckler getting a ton of if they're winning this game, Eckler gets a ton. He gets a ton of the workload anyway, and their passing game may just be reduced to kind of dink and dunk, using the pass game as a running game if they're up in this game by 2 touchdowns plus. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough to pass on Eckler. Another good option, but what are you paying? I would assume it's going to be a pretty high price.
No, he's the second most. He's right. Yeah. The problem is Kamara's right there, and Kamara's so much better.
Kamara
from a floor standpoint.
Kamara's definitely in a better spot, but this isn't a terrible spot either. That's the hard part about going all in on these guys. There's a few guys, that you could go all in, like we talked about Williams, because of the price.
Yes,
you're coming in lower, but it could be either or. It could be both of these guys. So it's a matter. That's why I like MMA, because I'm going to have, I'll have a few.
You mix it in.
A few Ecklers and a few Kamaras, and if it's both of them, you're hoping you get the rest of the combinations. But yeah, I don't have any problem with Eckler in this game. I think he's almost as good as a play as Kamara.
Mike Williams on the COVID list. Keenan Allen has COVID. Mike Williams, because of a close contact. I think Mike Williams will play. I think Williams will play. I don't think Allen will play. But I do expect Mike Williams to play. I think he's playable. But again, I don't know how much the Chargers are going to need Mike Williams. I think they're going to do it via the run. I don't have Herbert as one of my quarterbacks in my mix this week. I don't like the lack of weapons. I don't like the fact that they're playing against a shit team and where their defense can easily dominate this game. We might see the backup running back in the game in the fourth quarter where they're up huge. So it's not a game where I want to load up on fantasy pieces across the board. And the Giants actually have a decent cornerback that could probably match up okay with Mike Williams anyway. Although when you throw it to Mike Williams, he's going to smash. I just don't know that they'll have to throw it to him that much where it's going to matter, because it's a non-competitive style game, most likely, where the Chargers defense is going to be doing a lot of the work here. So, overall, not a whole lot of fantasy goodness to want it for me in this particular game. It's pretty ignorable. I think Chargers defense, certainly an exciting play. It's rare that I'm excited about a defense, but, if Jake Fromm is in there, or Mike Lennon, or Daniel Jones, they all turn the football over. It doesn't even matter. So, Chargers defense would be interesting. But
what's interesting is how well Chargers and obviously it's Herbert, how well he's done against the teams, from a fantasy point standpoint, against the teams that they've played above the average. So he's actually one of the best quarterbacks right there with actually he's above Tom Brady. I think he's number one, because they played really tough defenses and he scored well against them. So he's probably not number one. I haven't looked at it in just net points, but he's up there, which I didn't really even realize.
One nice thing about Herbert is his running situation benefits him, his RB situation, because Eckler is a guy that's going to catch a lot of passes for touchdowns. He's not just running for touchdowns. So whereas a Brady could get vultured by Fournette, as we've seen a couple times, and a couple of these other guys like Joe Burrow gets vultured by Mixon like crazy, and Dak gets vultured by Zeke, Pollard every game, it seems like, and even Kansas City has had running backs really produce well. The one team that really, that's not what's going on with the Chargers, because Eckler's such a pass catcher that even when the running back is smashing, he does tend to drag Herbert with him in those scenarios. So he's a little less likely to get vultured by his running back, and I think that affects his statistics. But yeah, Herbert's awesome. There's an argument for next year, and I don't subscribe to it yet, but Herbert is easily now a top 5 overall quarterback, and there are arguments to place him as high as top 2 from a fantasy perspective. I think top 3 or 4 is more realistic, where you still got Mahomes and Josh Allen as sort of the big dogs. But, he's right there. He's on the fringe. Kyler Murray, there's a big 4 at quarterback fantasy-wise. And I think Herbert's in the big 4 at this point.
Well, look at if you've been in survivor pools this year, you haven't had an opportunity to take the Chargers all that much. Look at their schedule. Like, they've played a pretty tough schedule thus far this year. So I was just kind of looking at it now. I'm like, how have they been in situations where they've been a big favorite? They haven't really been in that spot. As they haven't been a double-digit favorite, I don't believe, all season. I mean, they've played a pretty tough schedule. I mean, if you want to say like Philly was one of the worst teams they played, that's not bad. So they've played a difficult schedule this year. So we don't know. We haven't seen what they're going to look like in a game like this. And like you said, you don't typically want to start targeting games where you've got a 10-point favorite. But I do like the Eckler play here. I think it's just a similar spot as Kamara is. Maybe give the slight nod to Kamara.
Yeah, all about it. And I agree with you. Kamara, like I said, I don't normally play Kamara, but man, there is that. If he's ever going to do the 5 touchdown thing that he does on occasion, this is the one. And I believe, John, that is it for the NFL Week 14 main slate of games. That's it. Now, for those of you guys watching this, I will be back later today with a showdown breakdown, looking at tonight's game between the Steelers and the Vikings. So stick around, or make sure you like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you get notified when we go. I'll have the other GOAT, Bobby Moneybags, on with me to break down tonight's game. Always awesome. And for anybody playing this week's main slate, remember to get signed up at DFS Army as a VIP. Of course, you can use my promo code GEEK. If you're not currently signed up as a DFS Army VIP, you get 10% off. Why not? A little discount. Get the Domination Station Optimizer, the projections. Get John's power rankings. Everything we do, cheat sheets, core plays, everything for NFL. It's a non-stop party in DFS Army. Get in there And of course, if you don't have the Sharp app, make sure you download it. It's a free app. Make sure you download it. We've just added, you ready for this, John? We just added the betting handles in, so you will be able to see the public, the sharp money, all of that. With the next update, I don't know if it's hit yet. Might hit in an hour, might hit in 5 minutes, might be 2 hours from now. And we have some incredible additional features coming soon. I'm working on a player center, John, that no one has ever even conceptualized. We have game centers. Wait till we have player centers. It's going to blow your minds. So make sure you get that Sharp app. It's free. Download it. iPhone, App Store, all that good stuff. I will see you guys later today for the Showdown Breakdown. John, representing Sharp, thanks for popping on. As always, good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
And I will see you guys next time. Deuces, everyone.